Hey guys, today is May 18th, 2022, and we're starting a little project today. As some of you know, we have a couple of quarantine and treatment tanks, a 300 gallon and a 120 gallon, and I want to enlarge it. I want to join it with another 120 gallon. We've got this, bought it for $100 locally, and I want to join them together and actually add this space in between them as well. So hopefully it'll be about a 300 or 400 gallon tank when we're done. We need to drop it about 6 inches down, build a new base flat for the whole thing, and then silicone glass panels to join the whole thing together, and maybe add some reinforcement, but we will do it as we go, keeping the journal so you'll know everything. We cut off the tops of the embedded cinder blocks, and we're getting ready. We got the box for the concrete. I think I'm gonna try and do it dry and go from there, then just wet it and let it solidify. To save on concrete, I put some broken pieces and some rock on the bottom. It's more or less leveled. A few days later, the base is ready. It's about 4 feet plus wide, a couple of inches, and 5 feet plus a couple of inches long. The two 120 gallon tall are standing on the base. Okay, so both tanks are sitting on 1.5 inches of styrofoam. So it's 1, 2, 3 layers of 1/2 inch each. And also I have removed the bracing, the plastic bracing on the tops, to start cutting these two panes off, and then gluing it together. I'm using a utility knife just like that, something with a real thin blade, and I'm cutting into the seam. It's best to use something real thin, because the distance between the two panes of glass is very, very small, and some places they're even touching, so it can be hard going. And also it's best to apply pressure on both sides of the blade, here and the outside. I don't know how to show it to you best. Using a screwdriver to push on it from the inside, and just my hand on the outside. That's a tight spot where glass is almost touching. wiggle it and work work your way down as best you can. That is a smooth sailing, as you can see. All the way down to the bottom. One of the hardest steps is to get the knife started from the top, and it takes patience. Don't hurry, because otherwise you're gonna crack the glass or chip it off. So I will do just this rocking back and forth under while pressing down on it. Or also you can, what I do is very lightly, I press down and I tap on it with my screwdriver, but very lightly. And again, I was working on this for half an hour. Just take it slow, and it's the time well spent. Because after you're done, starting it, it's gonna go down much quicker. See? Better to spend half an hour starting it right, and then 1 minute going down. Then hurrying and cracking or chipping the glass. Again, with all four corners I had problems starting it. The biggest problem. So I have to spend a lot of time starting the knife down the seam. And the idea is that the cutting edge of the knife has to push this glass and this glass away from each other. Just little by little. And what also helps removing all of the silicone from the whole seam as much as possible, so that there is least resistance for the glass to separate, because this needs to push out. I'm using a very old and rusty utility knife, not utility, but whatever you call it, and I think if I use a sharper and newer knife would be better, but I've used up a lot of knives and I'm trying to see if I can make it with this one. rocking the knife back and forth, and I'm hammering it and rocking it and hammering it, driving the cutting edge deeper and deeper. And it's so hard because the pieces of glass touch each other in some places, and especially it seems at the top. So there is almost no silicone between them. It's almost like a dry joint, but only at the top. And once I'm able to push them away from each other, it's going to be a lot simpler. But it takes patience and time to get it started. I'm sure there are more and better ways to separate, to cut a silicone seam, which you can find on the YouTube or internet. I'm not saying this is the best or this is the worst. It's just this is the way I'm doing it. I've done it several times before and it always worked for me. So I guess I keep doing what I'm doing in the hopes that it will work this time as well. We took one off already. As you can see from this tank, I cut that other one, so this is the last seam I need to cut before I remove this glass. We're making a little progress here, I can feel it. It's getting deeper. Starting to go. It just started to go in. So it took me about 10-15 minutes to get it in. Now I'm ready to push it down. And cut the seam. this seam is cut, this seam is cut, and the bottom I can pry it out just like that. Again, don't hurry when you do that. You will feel the resistance, just go by the resistance. The resistance will weaken very quickly. You can see pretty much it. I just need to cut the bottom and remove this paint. That's the second paint. Push it out. So one of the panels is going to be the bottom, and to fit it inside I have to cut off 2 thicknesses of the side panels. So the side panels of this tank were they were about not about 3/8 of an inch. So 2 3/8 is 6/8 or 3/4 inch, and I'm gonna probably add another 1/8 of an inch or 1/4. So I'm gonna cut off about 7/8 or 1 inch of the edge of this piece of glass in order for it to fit inside and be the new bottom, joining the bottoms of the other 2 tanks or whatever's left of them. It's very hard to, I mean, it's going to be very hard to just break it along this line because of how little leverage we have. So I don't think I would be able to score it and just break it off. So I'm gonna try and cut it off with a grinder. Ideally, you want to do it with a diamond blade. I'm using just a steel cut-off blade, so it's pretty much cracking along the line from thermal expansion. And so far it's okay. I don't recommend this because you can break the whole glass easily, but if you take it real slow, you might be able to cut it with just, as I said, with the metal cut-off wheel on the grinder. Here is the last piece that fell off. It's not so much, it's not at all grinding down or cutting. It's mostly at the point of contact. Very high temperature develops and the glass cracks down instead of going out. It cracks down along the thickness. So I'm gonna grind down a little bit this edge, and this should be done. I did have a little bit of this little crack right here at the beginning, so I don't like that, but if it's going to be all silicone to a nice intact bottom piece, I think it should be fine. Alright, so I cut the bottom, I cut 1 inch, 7/8 from the bottom pane, the new bottom pane, the joining pane, and it fits nicely, leaving me just a little bit of space on each side to work with it. So we're gonna proceed to the sides now. The front paint from the back tank, the one that I cut off, it turned out to be thicker. It's ½ inch thick as opposed to 3/8 of an inch for the back paint from the front tank. So I cleaned it off with grinder. I ground off all the silicone on the edges, and I made one scratch with a diamond cutter. I think it's important to only make one, and I'm gonna try and see if I can break it along this scratch. Alright, so this is the important moment. As you saw, I made a scratch, a score. It's advisable usually to put some water on the score so the water goes into the crack, and it makes for a easier break. So I have my lovely wife standing on the other side, holding it down. I'm gonna try and push on it from this side and see what happens. I'm lifting my wife. Yay! That was a major success. We broke it in half. Make the two sides. You can come off, honey, now. Grinding down the sharp edges from the broken side so that they're safe to handle. I'm not gonna cut myself. I'm gonna try and cut a few more strips to improve the water tightness at the seams, which are too short for my taste. So I'm gonna score this 3/16 piece of glass and then try to break a 2-inch wide strip off of it. See what happens. Again, this is only 2 inches wide, so it's going to be I don't have much leverage to break it. Nice and clean, so I don't really know if it's going to work. We're going to try it. I probably better wear gloves. Okay, I put down a rug under just in case, and I put on the goggles, and I got gloves. I'm gonna try it now. I don't know how to try it best. Maybe I could use my foot as well. So I positioned the crack right along the edge of the wood. Nice if I were able to apply even pressure.
Not enough leverage. Okay, I'm gonna try and use my heels then. Come up a little bit farther. A little bit farther. The glass is able to handle my full weight. If I stand on my heels, see, it doesn't break. Not enough leverage. Okay, we're gonna try and knock it a little bit. Along this core. This is intended to produce little breaks in the glass. Yeah, see, last time we broke 3/8 of an inch glass rather easily because we had good leverage. Here this glass is twice thinner, 3/16. It's very hard to break. Even if I broke it with my heels, I'm afraid as it comes down I'm gonna crack the thin long strip anyway. And let go a little. Step on it again. Yep, uneven pressure, and it doesn't break as you need it to. See, this is the score line, and it broke just under my feet, and this part didn't break. So I probably need to put on another piece of wood and then step on it, and that way maybe it'll work. Okay, now I'm trying again. This is, I marked a 4-inch strip to double my lever from 2 inches to 4 inches. And I'm gonna use this piece of wood to apply a more even pressure. And now see what happens. Well, I almost got it, except again, see this, thank you honey, this piece in the middle didn't break. It broke uneven again because of the uneven pressure. Okay, this is third try. This is a 3-inch. It looks like 4-inch broke easy, so I decided to decrease the lever 1.5 times and try 3 inches. And now I'm gonna try and apply more even pressure. As you saw the last 2 times, it was the middle that gave us the problems. Yep, no good. I broke it in 3 pieces this time. One reason is because this is not even. So when my wife is standing on it, it's distorting, warping. Okay, maybe I will have to just use my grinder again and try to micro crack it little by little. Here is a dry fit. All the pieces are in place. The bottom 5 foot by 25 inches. The 2 sides 2.5 foot by 25 inches on both sides. So that's, and there is overlap, which is nice right here. The sides overlap the bottom on both sides, and everything is lined up well right here. I like that. And then, because I don't trust my workmanship, and to reinforce this edge so that the water has a longer way to get through silicone and get out and leak, I put what, 1, 2, 3 more plates, sort of in a Euro bracing kind of a fashion, but whatever. I mean, the idea is pretty obvious: to increase the path for the water, the nearest path from the inside out. As I showed you, I broken most of these pieces, but some of them I was able to not break. So all of this will be just silicone together. It doesn't matter. They're not of structural utility. They're just here to hold the silicone in place and increase the path for the water to leak. Alright? So this overlap on the bottom is about 6 inches. This overlap here looks like about 10 inches on each side. Same thing on the other side as well. So we're ready to degrease it with acetone and start start siliconing the pieces. We're gonna use just an acetone we bought from Lowe's home improvement store. This is the silicone we're going to use. This is GE Silicone 1. It's important, I think. Silicone 2 contains mold inhibiting agents which are or can be toxic to fish. So don't use silicone 2. I wouldn't recommend that. Windows and doors, I mean, it doesn't matter, but that's what it usually is for. And it's also 100% silicone. That's also important. That's, I think, pretty much all I want to say about it. You can read the fine print as well. So, it used to say adequate for aquarium use, but see, now I think they have been sued several times, and now they added this clause in the instructions: not for underwater / aquarium use, which is them just protecting their butt pretty much because of the lawsuits that they suffered from the users of the silicone. But it's just fine. I always use that, and everybody I know use that for the last 20 years. I use clear. It doesn't matter. I mean, again, clear is probably a little bit better aesthetically, even though the whole thing is going to be pretty ugly anyway. 7-year mold free, I don't think it means anything. I don't think it contains anti-mold agents. And again, 100% silicone is important, alright? So never mind this not for underwater aquarium use. Again, this is legal. I think their legal department made them add this to the instructions. Otherwise, I mean, it's the same silicone we've always used. Silicone 1 GE.
It's been about 2 weeks since I've done the siliconing. The silicone must have been all cured by now. There is still a slight smell of acetic acid, but 99.99% probably cured. The only thing I would probably do different is in some places, especially at the bottom, use 2 tubes of silicone instead of this is 1 tube, this is 1 tube. Instead of, I would have probably used 2 tubes and 2 tubes to make a better connection. But other than that, I think everything is looking alright. It's ugly, but hopefully it's functional and holds water. We're gonna test it now. So I decided not to reinforce the 4-foot wall because this is pretty thick and it's doubled up 10 inches here and 10 inches here, so it should be pretty strong. Same on this side. The only thing is I tied together this central brace because this is a 5-foot wall, front and back. So I just used a couple of stainless steel screws to tie the remnants of the 2 center braces together. Okay, I think we're ready for the water test. See if it holds, doesn't crack. I'm afraid that when I removed the bracing, the plastic bracing from the middle, I left it here in the front and on the back, I mean on the sides. You can see one right here. This is old bracing that ran in the middle. I left them both on both tanks, and that might have made them the tanks tilt that way a little bit on both sides, which is why my seam is not perfect. You can see that this is very nice here, and that it's not as nice of a contact closer to the middle. So, but we will see. Hopefully it's not too bad, and it will work. What else? Yeah, so this bracing has some depth to it, like maybe a 1/4 inch. So this is all around there along this perimeter, and here this half of the tank, this 120 tank stands a little higher by 1/4 inch, and the same on the other side along the bottom perimeter and in the middle. I probably should have removed all of that plastic brace from the get-go so that it sits flat on the styrofoam. That would have been better, instead of sitting on these on the braces, or on the remnants of the braces. I did stock more styrofoam under the middle, see, so that it also takes on some weight. It's kind of loose, so that it's got some freedom to work itself. Hopefully. Anyhow, we're gonna start filling it now and see what happens. And the first fill. The first half an hour it's holding. It's been a day and everything is fine. The tank is holding the water perfectly. So
I'll chalk it up as a success, but you have to listen carefully. I made a significant mistake, as I started telling you before. So this is the piece of glass that's straight, that sits level, and you see how the tank trim is running down that way. So it's tilted that way a little bit, by about 1/4 inch right here. Here it is level with the new piece of glass that joins two tanks together, and here we have a difference of about 1/4 inch. The same thing on the other side. And this happened because, as I was trying to explain, see the same thing here. This happened because I removed that piece of trim. You know, each tank had this had a back glass, this had a front glass, and it was sitting on this piece of trim like that. So say this is for the back tank. So this was the front, and the tank was sitting on this trim like that, and there is another trim in the back, piece of trim, and then there is 3 pieces across. You can see one below the tank under the water that's still visible. So when I removed that completely, it made the tank unbalanced. And I thought that, you know, there was the remaining back wall of glass and the remaining front wall of glass were heavy enough to push where they are and keep the tanks level. But when I placed the joining glass, because I did the bottom first, and I placed weight on it, it made both tanks go from level to slightly like that. Both tanks sank a little bit in the middle. So right now both tanks are off, or mostly the front tank. The back tank is a little better, but still, maybe this is 1/8 of an inch, this is 1/4 of an inch off from the level. So my only hope is that the thick styrofoam will help adjust and mitigate my blunder. My piece of advice to you is remove this trim completely, or when you cut the trim away, cut only this portion, you know, the one that's visible, and leave the one that's the tank is sitting on intact underneath, so that it sits level, nice and level when you join two tanks together. Because when I pressed in the middle, both tanks, you know, caved a little bit, sank a little bit in the middle, and the outer portions of the tanks popped up a little bit. So that's my concern. The tank can fail at any point with this defect, or may never fail, who knows. I hope the styrofoam will again make up for my blunder. But anyhow, this is my only big problem with this tank that I missed. Other than that, I would freely recommend to anybody to do this. This is very cheap. This is like a $250 for a 400-gallon tank that you can make yourself at home. If you scavenge a couple of 120-gallon tanks from your local classifieds, about $100 each, or if you find them broken, you may even get them for free. So you can even get this tank done for like $50 if you're lucky, just in the silicone. Silicone is the only expense that you would have if you find broken tanks like this that match each other, I mean, in the dimensions. I mean, you can find them different, like 255s or 200s. This is 120 tall. Each tank was 120 gallon tall, 5 feet by 1.5 foot and by 2 foot deep. So as long as the front and the back match each other, I don't see any reason for anybody to not being able to do that. It's pretty simple. It's easy to work with glass. It glues quickly and well. The trick is lining up. Don't make the same mistake I did, because I messed up the lining up of the bottom, and hence the top is of course messed up too, and not the top but the sides. So now the front portion and the back portion don't sit level by about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. But if you don't do the same stupid mistake I did, you should be golden. Alright, and to crown our profoundly inglorious contraption is a tank lid, or rather a cover, made of greenhouse plastic film and 2-inch clamps along the perimeter. So the farce is complete. This is of course our quarantine tank. For those of you who are not familiar with it, all the water runs down into this 25,000 gallon pond. 1, 2, 3, 4, and freshwater 5 sources. From there, underground, it comes out here and runs into the first quarantine tank, which is right now a timeout for Indian shovelnose. And from there it runs down into this second quarantine tank, and from there into the sand bed as required by Florida Wildlife Commission, the government. So that's a little story. Thank you for watching, guys. Hopefully it will inspire you to try it yourselves. Again, I don't make any claims, or I don't take any responsibility. You have to know what you're doing, of course, and have some reasonable, I guess, expectations and skill. But this reasonable skill is really very rudimentary, in my opinion, very primitive, with large overlaps of the glass panes. You're buying a lot of security in terms of the leaks and in terms of the structural strength in this type of construction.